Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 81, an ongoing series of weekly live broadcasts created for those who have a growth mindset or those who'd like to develop one. All right, so today we get a chance to play with a quote, another one that I love. And speaking of, I'd love you to click share right down there at the bottom of your video while we get into this broadcast and invite your friends, your community, your colleagues to join this conversation. All right, the quote we're going to play with today is this: "Only he who attempts the absurd is capable of achieving the impossible." It's Miguel Unamuno, Jugo is his full name. And what I love about this is we can take this from the sublime to the ridiculous, right? This is not necessarily impossible in terms of defying the laws of gravity, but let's keep it simple and accessible, shall we? I take it back to the late 1980s. The project that Tim Berners-Lee started in the late 80s finally came to a head in 1991. His birthing HTML spawned the World Wide Web, and the rest is history, except there's part of that history that you may not know, which is kind of absurd, right? At least in my view. A mere 4 years after Berners-Lee completed HTML and launched the web into the world, or the modern web, two 30-year-olds in Atlanta got together and decided to launch an internet strategy and web development company. And that was me and Beth Cooper, and neither one of us at that point knew how to code, how to write HTML. But we knew that there was a project that we had a chance to work on. I'd been approached by a consultant that was doing wiring work and the technology backend work for FIFA, the International Federation for Football, for soccer. And they were trying to create something akin to the NFL experience. The 18-wheelers that would arrive at a location and people could climb inside, and there were interactive experiences that would put people on the pitch and in the goal and give them the experience of playing World Cup soccer. Well, needed some multimedia, a good bit of multimedia to go with the technology footprint. So Beth is somebody I've known since I was yay big. So Beth and I connected, and we were talking about this project, and FIFA ran out of money before they ran out of project. In fact, they ran out of money before they really got started. So the project fizzled, but Beth and I connected and realized that we wanted to do something together. So with no clue what the hell we were doing, we started a web company called Digital Positions. And so that comes back to that quote: only he who attempts, or only they who attempt the absurd, are capable of achieving the impossible. So, on the bright side, we never gave a second thought to how impossible it might have seemed at the time. The web was new, it was ridiculously unknown, and even at that point, and to borrow from Alan Greenspan in 1995, we were irrationally exuberant. We had to teach people what the internet was before we could sell them a website. That's a really long arc. So as soon as we got the first sale, I spent the next 3 days at TR Digital here in Atlanta learning how to HTML how to write in HTML so we could actually deliver that first site. It was an absurd beginning and typical of falling backwards into something magnificent. In an Inc.com article from 2015, read that 96% of businesses, 96% of businesses fail in the first 10 years. Well, when I sold to Beth in 2009, our business had passed the 14-year mark. And it was only this past December in 2018 that the company stopped taking on new clients. That's after 23 years. That is impossible. The stats against that kind of longevity in a startup are staggering. And yet, that opens it up to what would you attempt that you feel like is absurd or you think that would be ridiculous, that honestly you look at it and go, oh, that's crazy, that's impossible, that would never work. Only one who attempts the absurd is capable of achieving the impossible. Most of the time what makes things impossible is we're not accepting the possibility of believing in it. Our lack of belief is what makes things impossible more than anything else. And this quote comes from the very early 1900s, before, around the time of World War I. This is Spanish. Miguel de Unamuno was a Spanish poet, novelist, playwright, philosopher, professor of Greek and the classics, and he was later was the rector of the University of Salamanca. So this is an academician and a creative, and held on to the not very new idea, brought forth that idea again, that we make things impossible. It's not the world around us that makes things impossible. We decide that something is impossible and therefore it is. We'll flip it. If we can decide it's impossible and make it so, then what if we decided it was possible? Better yet, what if we didn't care? What if you plow forward with an unfaltering belief that you will accomplish something? And if not accomplish that thing for which you began the process, but because of what it will unearth along the way and being willing to follow that path. It's only one who attempts the absurd that is capable of achieving the impossible. So that's the opportunity for this week, is to play with what it is that you're making up is absurd, or you're making up that is impossible. What is it that you want to play with out in the world? What is it that you want to step into? What is it that you want to build, you want to see created? You have the opportunity to play and play big. Remember, things are created twice in this world, once in here and once in the world. Thanks, Bill. Appreciate the comment. So here, let me put this one up. Where'd it go? Yes, Elaine and I just dropped off our middle child for their senior year at their school, and a couple hours away dropped off our youngest for his freshman year at his school. So we are kidless. So yes, this is the first Mindset Mondays during the empty nest phase. And I love that this quote fell naturally on this Monday. It's the opportunity to look at what is it that we have been making up that was impossible while we had a house full of children, and what is it that becomes possible? I have no loss of coming up with things that are absurd to play with. What is it that we want to take the opportunity to create? What are the absurd things that we can bring out into this world and create something fantastic? And what that requires is letting go of what we make up as possible and what we make up as impossible. Elaine's book is going to her publisher in November. My book is going to my publisher in October or November. Hers will be hitting the shelves in June and July this summer. Mine will be hitting sometime around Groundhog Day, if everything lines up with the dates correctly. And so I look at, when I first talked about writing the book and doing this whole launch series, it felt impossible. It certainly felt absurd. And yet now it feels so reasonable and so rational and so possible because we've been building towards it. So it's Monday. For some of you, it's late Monday night on the Pacific Rim. For others, it's very early on the Pacific Coast. It's an opportunity to make this week the chance to play with an absurd idea that you have and begin to breathe life into it. What makes it impossible is you're not yet having decided to breathe life into it. So play with those ideas. Play with what you think is absurd. Begin to put your heart and your head into it and see what you can breathe life into. And this time next year will be a magnificently different place in your world. It is so powerful to look at something impossible and know that you've achieved that which you previously believed was absurd or even impossible. So this week, as always, the question is, what mindset will you choose?